whole series of art that I've only glimpsed in various forms, and I know that it's taken you quite a while to have done this particular art. It's you started when you were 42 in 1955, and then 59, wasn't it?
59 with this series, with the paintings on the canvas. But before that, there would have been, in the little small tablets, there would have been images of relating to this, and up until then, I think I would have been thrashing around with trying to find some anchor for myself in such an as an introvert in such an extroverted world and such a deadly conventionality that it was killing me. So I had started my therapy, which dealt with a lot of that personal stuff, when I was about 35,
Okay.
something like that. And I think we figured out in 1959, since I was born in 1917, in 1959, I think was the beginning of really getting a kind of understanding of that introverted work as an archetypal container, or an archetypal dynamic. And that's when I would have begun to try to put my struggle with the archetypal world, which was central to my personality. I never fit into just the conventional social structure. But Jung's work with the archetypes was the first thing that made sense in my life. And that would have been when I was about 35. I would have at that time gone to a therapist and said, my problem is a marital problem. Whereupon Max Zeller, with whom I was fortunate to land into his lap, said, there's no such thing as a marital problem. There are individual problems that get constellated when you're living with another person. So immediately he put me onto responsibility for my own struggle between a very fragile ego and this kind of archetypal inundation. At the point in my life when I began to do these, I would say, kind of composite paintings of the different archetypal forces, where if you see in the first one would be just that great mother, which would be the life. And she's holding the split between the Christian shoulds and the instinctual life. And how this very primitive masculine force up here in the corner, which is the discriminating function for the woman, would be the inner masculine, that contrasexual dimension of the personality. In my view, I think that is the very hub of the woman's individuation process. I think the work that I've done in my life has been dealing with that awful split within the religious within the Western culture, uh, between between the masculine and the feminine. And I think that the challenge for the woman, if she's going to find her center in her own feminine authenticity, is to have to bridge that split. And that was brought home to me by Max Zeller when I worked with him, and he said, if you don't deal with this split, you will become either a religious fanatic or a whore.
So Katie, this is the very first painting that you did?
This was the first composite pulling together of the different archetypal forces.
And how long before
As
this had you been,
interrelated.
how long before this had you been painting?
Before that, it would have been just little images in a tablet. And so that there would have been little images of the animus, and there would have been just affective. But here was to try to grasp an archetypal interaction of the different parts of my psyche.
And what kind of inspired you to take this leap?
A strange thing, because before that my energy had gone pretty much to crafts and, diddling around with different things. And someone said, try a painting class, do a still life. So I did this, and I thought, that's amazing. That's kind of fun to work on a canvas, and it's not bad. So that really gave me support to stretch a canvas and try to really pull things together.
So could you tell me about each image that appears in this painting?
I think this image of this little dark fellow up here reaching toward the light would be that masculine discriminating potential. But it's so primitive and it's undeveloped.
And he had appeared to you earlier than this?
I'd been struggling with dealing with that animus possession because it was the only defense I had.
And did it originally come out of a dream or doodling or something with your art?
I think it originally came from the therapist that gave me some structure of how the psyche works, the reality of the psyche. And to begin to differentiate who's talking. Would it be the shoulds or would it come more from me? But at this point, an awful lot was coming from collective shoulds.
So this is a voice of the should.
This is a voice, I think, of beginning insight of what the feminine contains, the possibility, the energy in that center, but all the apple, the rose, the grieving woman on one side, and on the other side there's a bug and a kind of I think she's a witch, and the grain, and at the top, the 12, the possibility of totality that could emerge from this feminine center, which at this time is not alert.
What was the number 12 related to?
I think 12 is a number of wholeness.
Okay.
Fulfillment. 12 hours in the day.
12 signs of the zodiac?
12 signs of the zodiac, which goes into your field.
Yes.
And
what about the cross itself? It's a little bit different kind of cross.
it's a different cross, as you can see, that the center point is pretty far from the land, from being rooted in the earth. But on the other hand, she holds the serpent. I think this is what emerges out of the possibility of being rooted, for the woman to be rooted in the feminine, in the Great Mother. But but here, she isn't the Virgin Mary. She has that instinctual serpent, but she also has the conventional Christian cross, but a long, long way away. But it does have the 4 points of light, and the 4 being carrying one's own cross of wholeness.
Also, I noticed that the same color for the lights is this kind of the way in which you dotted the snake. There's something there too.
But I think that has been encouraging to find that energy, which took the form of sexuality, carried light. That it wasn't just, dark earth, but carried light. That there is consciousness. There is a consciousness carried by that instinctual connection to the body.
I like the position of her hands as well. It's kind of like, to me, it says something about balancing.
It's trying to balance that. Not easy.
No, it's not. And what about what's coming up above?
Here,
Yeah.
that's enlightenment. Where the sun, there would be a sun, which would be that kind of masculine light that could illuminate that kind of diffuse feminine consciousness.
What kind of emotional state were you in when you did this art?
I think at this time of my life, I was just waking up to the point of realizing that I needed to have a stand of my own, which was not culturally endorsed. When I would have married, it would be, well, that's what your husband wants, and before that, I'd sort of been just carried along.
So this was an awakening within you?
This is the beginning of, I think, individual awakening of my own responsibility to myself as a feminine, authentic feminine voice.
When you started this painting, did you start with the circle in the center?
No, I started, and here's where I liked using oils. I started to see what wanted to be painted on there.
And what came first?
Oh, I don't remember, but I do know that in many of these paintings I rubbed out an awful lot of the images and then kind of got little clues from what seemed to want to come out on the canvas.
So a lot of what we see on the canvas is not something that was pre-formed in your mind? Okay.
No, it evolved.
It evolved. In terms of...
And I think the unconscious did it. As I looked through the list of these paintings, anticipating that I would be meeting with you, I thought, how did I ever do that? Because I'm not an artist. And some of them, particularly now that I'm sort of playing around with, no longer with oils, but just sort of playing around trying to give image to dreams, I'm finding it's awfully hard to draw a foot or a hand. Well, some of these look pretty good.
So you mentioned what Max Zeller told you at the beginning of this process, which was you either can end up as a religious fanatic or a whore. You're identifying the whore energy with the snake and the...
With the instinctual.
Instinctual.
With the instinctual life. And you know, if we look at the overview, beyond Christianity, we will see that that instinctual life was also at one time a religious function. So basically, I think one is faced, when one deals with this archetypal material, one is faced with a religious challenge to find a new expression of God.
And I always look at people's charts from the standpoint as though they've been chosen for something, and they're trying to decipher what that is. And at this point in your life, it seems like you're chosen to illuminate something about the awakening of the feminine.
And the awakening, and in a way, almost as a servant to the process of evolution of consciousness. Painting something like this provided something to meditate on, which worked pretty fast because it wasn't long until I got into that one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, again, the differentiation of the images that were in the first one. But here, and here's where I could see was so helpful, that from the center, that the energy went out, but from the outer, energy went in. The witch mother, I know very, very well. And I think if I would say any great transformation of my life would have been to have constellated for me a loving mother, which I was fortunate that when I came to California.
Which was what year? Or how
Well,
old
let's
were
see,
you?
I was 10.
10, okay.
That one of the neighbors, whose daughter was my age, liked me and sort of realized that I had some potential, and so I got a little socialization through that.
She would be the good mother?
And so she was more of an accepting mother.
Nurturing? She would...
Not nurturing, but not in a
smothering way?
cuddly way, you
No.
know. And a few years later, oh gosh, when I was in Zurich, I worked with Lillian Fry-Rohn, who was a remarkable woman. And I think that after therapy one time, she might frighten me almost, where she just gave me this warm embrace, and that never happened to me before. It leads to the center.
Pushing you towards the center.
Pushing me toward the center.
What's also there's a lot of activity in the body there.
The fire.
Fire in the stomach, solar plexus area.
And I would say it's just that fire for life, you know, that's going to be lived out either sexually,
Fire in the
intellectually, with passion of some kind or other. And fortunately, my passion became with the inner life. Eventually. Took a long time.
I noticed that this woman figure
pregnant.
has fire too, but it's fire
has-
outside of the body as opposed to
That's
being.
right.
But something's going on
But she's
inside her.
fire.
But she's also pregnant, which is
She's
a kind
pregnant.
of a life fire.
And she's also holding a sheaf of wheat,
Yeah.
of the fertility. Well, on this side, you'd have, again, the masculine, but here he has a halo of light, so the potential there. But also that this lotus with that Phallic energy. But I think just the idea that it would be more contained light.
So you wouldn't approach this canvas from the standpoint as though I want to have this to be the feminine side, and this to be the masculine
There's
side.
There's nothing rational about it
Okay.
at all.
But this just came out this way.
It came out that way.
That this became the masculine side over here for you. This became the
In fact,
feminine.
I don't think I would until I talked to you, but right now I never really saw that there was such a division.
Okay. Do you think that also that did this first appear to you as a circle, or did it always kind of think of it as a
I
spiral?
played around with
Okay.
how that would go. It was not rational. And if you would see that the feminine here is on the left, which is on the unconscious,
Right.
while in the more rational side, or the more egocentric side, the more conscious side at that time would have been dominated by the masculine.
You know, he has that kind of halo, you said, of illumination, but also there seems like there's something about it that's very, very harsh. You know, I mean, those are very strident. You know, that
Well,
kind of mental vibration.
You know, that primitive side is harsh. Nature is harsh. Which, look around to all the medications and
Well,
scientific things that's going to control if you age or if you're ill, or
Well,
to protect you
At the-
from nature.
at this point, weren't you also struggling with what's going on with your body? You
Oh.
mentioned something like that you're having trouble diagnosing some kind of. Were you experiencing pain? Were you experiencing?
I was experiencing weakness, headaches. I was incapacitated.
I think this is having a headache. In some ways,
But there's a lot of energy
A lot of
there.
energy, extreme energy. Yeah. It's so wonderful that you share this material with me and with others, and so talk about it so freely. How long did it take you really until you were able to really talk about these things or share these people, other than your therapist?
Well, I found that this kind of inner search was so little appreciated or recognized at that time in the 50s, that after a while I decided, don't talk about any of this until you have integrated, because most of this would come out like a dream. And until I had integrated the material, the people's reactions almost poisoned the process.
Mm.
And I find it's a great advantage in old age, and also that I would have secured that center enough to even talk about these things as I do.
Do you think that what you've integrated is more of the feminine?
Oh, I think to find that feminine center, because with that linear, masculine, patriarchal approach, which is what dominates in our culture, that you're either good or you're bad, or you're right or you're wrong, and without that kind of connuncio with the feminine as to where you could see both sides, that, you know, certainly that sexuality, you know, could tear you apart, but on the other hand, it's trying to express the only way you know at the time, a way of relating. So that irrational, that wisdom that the feminine brings to see it in the round, but without the help of the masculine, that round is so diffuse that the woman doesn't have the help of that her inner masculine discrimination.
So it's a combination of both of them.
So it needs both.
Don't you think the feminine mother archetype was what helps you deal with the suffering that you're going through?
Oh, I think to find meaning in the
Yeah.
suffering,
Mm-hmm.
indeed. And that, I think, is going to be the big challenge of this sort of chaotic time of transition from one age to another, is how to find meaning in the chaos, in the sort of limbo between a new container gets developed.
My impression is that the masculine would be more apt to just vanquish the chaos.
That's right.
As
Which is
opposed-
what you're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
The way it's with the Tea Party,
Mhm.
get more and more rigid to hold on to the old way, but the old way isn't working,
And it doesn't heal.
and it doesn't heal.
And that's
It doesn't heal, and it doesn't carry meaning for this new age.